Hey Astha, amazing party.
घर खाली बार खाली ये गली भुलाने वाली इनके सवालों
I think आप boundaries cross कर रहे हैं।
जब तक आप बाउंड्री क्रॉस न करो तब तक पता कैसे चलेगा कि बाउंड्री है कहाँ?
A promise is a promise. Husband wife special time.
जो बचा के रख चुके हो देखो
आस्था।
वो भी बन गए हैं कल के
ऐसा लगता है इस पेंटिंग में मैं हूँ।
आज का हिसाब
तीसरी बार मिले हैं हम।
खाम खाएंगे
इतनी awkward क्यों हो रही हो?
यूं ही दाने चुन रहे हो हम वो सदी जो
तुमने मुझे
बीत जाएगी
मुझे खुद से मिलाया है।
मतलब
ये कहानी जो है ना वो हैप्पीली एवर आफ्टर पे नहीं एंड होती, वहां से शुरू होती है।
बेमतलब
कभी किसी के साथ ऐसा महसूस नहीं किया
बेमतलब
जैसा मैं तुम्हारे साथ फील कर रही हूँ।
बेमतलब
That's the trailer for The Married Woman. It's a show based on a novel called A Married Woman by Manju Kapur. It's a best-selling novel. It acknowledges, perhaps talks about things that shows don't normally talk about. It acknowledges same-sex relationships, especially between women, that tend to be sidelined a lot. We haven't really seen any show address it head on. It also addresses what society's expectations of the sort of timeline of a woman's life is, like what you're supposed to do and what it means to have a successful life as a woman in society, which is you get married at a certain age, you have babies at a certain age, you raise your kids, you keep a good house, which means that if everyone is happy, you've done a good job. Maybe in that whole journey, we don't really talk about what a woman wants or what a woman needs. This show does that. And as you know, I've always been partial about women telling stories about women because that perspective tends to be very different, which is why I thought this show was really cool. And this was a conversation that we must have about the LGBTQI community, how it's portrayed in film and television, and what it means to have a show like this, especially for women. So that's a conversation we're having right now with the wonderful people behind this show. And I'm really happy that Ekta Kapoor made time out of her schedule to talk about it as well, which is really cool. I know she regularly sort of pops in for these conversations, but I understand this is something she feels strongly about as well. So I've showed you a little bit of the trailer at the beginning. You can take a look at the trailer on YouTube, but go take a look at the show as well, because it will really give you something to talk about. So here I am with something to talk about The Married Woman. Joining me right now, Ekta Kapoor, who is the big boss of Balaji. Also actors Riddhi, Dogra and Monica Dogra, who are the stars of this show. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me to have this conversation.
Thank you for having
It's such a
me.
pleasure
Thank
to have
you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure
It's
to
such a
be
pleasure
here.
to have an all-girls. All-girl panel. Yay!
Yay!
So I know that Monica's badly awake because she's overseas and we've woken her up in the middle of the night. So we're going to prod every time we want her to respond. We'll try and keep her awake.
I'm super awake. I'm really shy. Faye, I have such deep, unbelievable respect for you. Really, I'm like blown just to be sitting here talking to you.
That's really sweet. I've watched a lot of your work and I'm a huge fan of everything you've done in your career as well. And I love the fact that you sort of made your own space and you've not conformed with what was expected. So this is a conversation that, we're partnering with Balaji to have this conversation with you because allied interests, women's empowerment, women telling women's stories, LGBTQI portrayal in mainstream cinema and television. These are things that, as you know, I feel really strongly about. This is an allied sort of purpose for us. Ekta Kapoor, thank you for making time. But I want to understand from you why you decided to tell this story. And you tell a ton of stories. I mean, you're a storyteller on varied platforms. But what was it about this story that made you sort of sit up and take notice and say, hey, we have to do this?
So the story deals with on 3 layers. It doesn't only deal with, and it's not a lot of stories shout out, and there are some stories. I mean, if you see the show also, it's almost languid at times, because it's peeling off conditioning so so smartly, and the drama is so internal that I thought this story was almost therapeutic for me. When I read it, it was exactly what all of us go through at some stage of our lives. Individuality versus conditioning. We come into this world, we are told this is the way you're supposed to be, marry at this age, have children at this age, and everyone who does that have this thing called midlife crisis, because at one point you realize that this is not what you wanted, and that's what Astha. And then there is the political scenario in the show, and at the end, it's about two women from two different religions who find love with each other. So it was breaking conditioning at various stages of these two women, and I thought same sex, two women. Where have you heard these stories? I mean, you're right. When we talk about a lot of shows and movies, we create either side characters, or it's supposed to be funny, or it's supposed to be, interesting for a certain lens, but we don't have an in-depth analysis or understanding of what a relationship is, especially, and it's not just LGBT, it's especially lesbian women or women who are pansexual, who, like, there's a line in the promo also where the man says that you don't even have the main instrument to actually cheat. So, there's so much lack of knowledge on this that I was like, this is a story to be told, because it's an emotional journey.
Well, we're on the internet now. You and I are not on television, Ekta, so we can say the word. So effectively, the idea is that if there's no, if there are no male parts, if there's no penis involved, then it's not cheating. This is not a real relationship. This is not something I need to worry about. And that's also perhaps an idea that's percolated into society, because a lot of the work that I've done in the LGBTQI community, we've had two challenges. One, spokespeople for the community are invariably all male, even within the community. Very few, we had to actually go out looking for women to talk about issues whenever we were taking this up. The bigger problem that we've had whenever we spoke with either bi or lesbian or trans women was that their family members think this is a phase. Like, you misunderstood what this is supposed to be like. It's a phase, you'll get over it. Let's get this person married quickly. And, when they figure out what the real thing is, they'll get over it. And I like the fact that the show addresses a lot of that it's more than just the act of sex, but even that act of sex needs to be acknowledged.
Absolutely.
When I think the very fact that guys or men actually say that, if there's no penis, then it's what's the point of anything, is many times also the problem that men have. If we go out of the just the same sex relationships, and if we just address men versus women, they need to understand that connection is a huge thing. It takes that in itself. It's not like if you have a penis, you have a great relationship. You need to have connection, you need to have some sort of bond, you need to have some sort of give and take of an emotional you need to have an emotional equation. And at so many levels, this when we were shooting the scenes, there were just so many things which were so important and which needed to be told. And I love the fact that Jaya and Ekta and Surbhi, the writers, along with our director, they actually wrote it in a way that it was normalized, and that was beautiful. When we were sitting down rehearsing, or when we were on set and doing these scenes, it was it never felt like, a lot of people ask me, and I don't know, Monica must be asked these questions too. How did you prepare for this? There was no, this is a different thing. You're with a girl. What did you do? Did you see some same-sex, movies, or did you meet people? And I was actually like, no, it's just a connection, and it's as beautiful as man, woman, woman. It's or anybody. And so really, I feel like we need to normalize a lot of things so that we can talk about them. Because if we keep defending things, then we're just going to be going round and round in circles.
Monica, what I loved in this show? The role that art played, right? Because it's a lot of, Riddhi's character being seen for the first time. Because she had all of these relationships in her life, children, in-laws, husband, but nobody saw her as an individual, which is what her lover did. Because she was not somebody's wife or somebody's. She was herself. And art played such a beautiful role, whether we were talking about theater or you're actually talking about, art on canvas, played such a beautiful role in bringing that out, in just saying that, hey, listen. So it sort of echoes that whole connection, that here is a connection between two people that that one person wouldn't have even considered had it not been for that art that gave them something to acknowledge, give you something tangible to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that, first of all, I love, one of the reasons why I think you're so important in the world of journalism is because of your specificity and your bravery. And two things that you've mentioned that I really want to just like reinforce are representation and allyship in this show. Often there are conversations around representing a community of people that haven't been represented in this way, or maybe, in this format on such a scale. And then there's another kind of conversation around what it means to be an outsider to a community that's been representing itself beautifully and paying the price for representing itself beautifully for a really long time. Those are things that we approached out of the gate and thought about and considered sensitively every single step of the way. And we kept coming back to the fact that we just had to tell a really honest story about specific people, and in the billions of iterations of people, this was one story. And we had to be as truthful to that as possible. And within that story is the theme of being seen, which is exactly why I think we fall in love. It's because finally we're seen. Someone sees us in a way that we've never seen ourselves. I often say this too, like, what do you fall in love with? You fall in love with your own reflection in someone else's eyes, And I think that that's what took place between Peeplika and Astha. It was just on both sides. I think Peeplika saw herself. She was able to be vulnerable. She felt seen. The thing that happens between Peeplika and Astha, she hunts Astha. She watches her every move, like she smells her. She rotates around her. And I think that's super sexy, like a message to anyone watching, man, woman, on the spectrum of whatever it may be. It is the sexiest thing to be heard, to have your details noticed, to know that someone is devouring every nuance of you is the hottest thing in the world. I mean, come on.
I was doing some research into portrayal of same-sex relationships between women. Invariably, it's all pornographic. Girl on girl or lesbians is apparently one of the most searched terms on the internet, and largely from a pornographic point of view. Among porn categories in India, at least, apparently, lesbians is something that gets searched a lot, according to many types of research. And I won't go into the details, but some of it is quite disgusting. Never mind, stepping aside from that. Even that is from the male gaze, right? It has nothing to do with what those two women want. So to be able to look at this as a relationship between two individuals who are attracted to each other because they find each other intelligent, warm, comforting, there's a connection. It's not about the male gaze at all. I just want you guys to, just talk about what that was like, to sort of flesh out that relationship in a way that nobody has done up till now, for the Indian screen at least.
So the first time I sent the script to Riddhi, I had seen her in Asur. She came and met me and said, I don't want to do the show. So I was like, why? She's like, it's all Balaji and it's same sex. I'm very scared with the way we portray women. And I was like, hello, I'm very involved in this show and I take this personally. You're saying this to me. I am not going to even show your shoulder. I would probably show it but then the director came and met me, and he in fact is one of the most interesting men I've met. He's his name is Sahir Raza. He is
The feminist.
He's a feminist. He's come from a great lineage, and he came and he met me, and he was like, "How are we going to normalize two women if we don't show them kissing or hugging or holding each other? And I said, but then you take the responsibility that it doesn't look sleazy, because I have a lot of baggage and I'm not going to carry that baggage on this show. You know, I'm doing the show from the heart and I want this to come out. I want it to come out real. And he said, leave it to me. And then the girls came and every day we were so conscious that we have to one side normalize it and on the other side not make it provocative for men or anybody to find it exciting in a way that is not relatable, you know?
Yeah. So it's not used, if people are not coming there in a sort of voyeuristic sort of thing, that you're actually watching relationships. So Riddhi, what was that process like when you said, I don't want to do this show, to actually doing this show?
So I read something and I was like, this is not looking okay. And the beauty of everything after that was that more than me, Jaya, her, you know, they really took it personally that I said it, that I felt, you know, that I was like, no, look at this, you know, this is not okay and I'm not going to do this. And they were like, wait a minute, what have you read? It's wrong. You know, you're not supposed to read this was the first draft and forget about it. And I was telling Monica also that good, you did not read the first draft. Because, you know, you would have also been a little zapped. But the sensitivity that all of them had before any of us came on board, I think put us at ease, put me at ease. You know, by the time I met Sahir, it was after lockdown. We met in September of 2020, and you know, we met and we were discussing the scenes, and they were, you know, he was showing us the world that they're going to create. There was a lot of responsibility, you know, there was a lot of responsibility. They were doing it with so much sensitivity that I don't think I had even a day when I doubted my decision after that. Like, I was excited because I knew that this is a bunch of people who really, really, even a creative director who was very closely working with Sahir, Mehak, you know, I mean, these people are so important because they're never going to be seen in front. It's just me, you know, us. But they really made the show, like they didn't let even one thing go off tone, you know, like if something was going off, they were catching it and they were not letting anything go, whether it was on rehearsals, whether it was in readings or when we were shooting. You know, it was amazing to work with a team of people that had already normalized this for us. You know, there was no space for us to feel or for me to feel weirded out by anything. And that was beautiful to be able to do that. I think in itself is a huge achievement because we had nothing to fall back on. We had nothing to see, to take from. We had nothing to, you know, sort of project ourselves on. It was just us trying to create something normally. And then, of course, when I heard Monica's on board, I was like, that's it. This is going to be fantastic because I know her sensibilities. I know, you know, the mind that she has. So it was important, you know. Even Suhas, the person who played Hemant, he's playing the typical MCP, so as they say. He is an extremely, like, for him to play that character, he's extremely liberal and he's extremely, you know, he's got a worldview on things, and he's an artist. He has a rock band. And, you know, there was a certain sensitivity that he also got. And he, you know, he was constantly playing that man to the T, who he was not. And, you know, he was never judging him. He was never saying, oh my God, I can't believe there are men like that. He was doing, you know, complete justice to that character. So I think it was just all of us coming together. You know, kudos to Ekta, I think, that she got all of us, because it was, no, clearly, like you just put all of us together. And then, you know, we went and we executed what you had the vision for. So,
more than vision, Faye, what happens is that India's way of looking at same sex is usually tolerance. It's not acceptance. And we don't know the difference yet, you know. Tolerance and acceptance. So either we have vicarious pleasures in our own bedrooms over same sex, or we tolerate it, which means that we don't accept it in a way that it is discussed. We go on reality shows, even on my own shows, and we're discussing Astha's choices, but we're not going out there and saying there are these two women in love, because that's radical, you know. And that's my bigger issue, that, oh, it's okay, these people have their life. They're not these people. I mean, it's not a community. It's a marginalized community for sure. but it's not anything different than loving.
Different. Yeah.
It's a problem, like Riddhi had last time said, let's not call it the alternative lifestyle. And that's the problem. There's no mainstream representation. There is no conscious effort from people like me and us, creators, to make content where the main protagonists have, and it's still done with men who are gay. But women who are lesbians are so poorly represented that I was like, I'm going to go out and promote this and on my shows. Why not? Why not?
But did you, and you know how we have all of these voices of people around us, well-wishers, who will say, "Arey mat karo." You know, someone will come and break your office ka darwaza saying that this is against Indian culture. There'll be 4 FIRs, you get notices from somewhere. And that's, let's be honest, that's the environment we're living in right now. Was that a concern, Ekta, that Indian culture will sort of reject this idea?
So there was a huge amount of concern. I thought we did a balanced understanding and balanced projection of both communities, Hindu and Muslim. But yeah, same sex is a huge issue for a lot of people even today. It's like, I mean, there are comments on my wall so many times on sexuality, which is so degrading, and I really don't understand why. But my whole thing was, 10 years later, and I like I told you, I'm 95% businesswoman. I don't take away. I do not want to sit on a pedestal ever. I love making money, and I have no problem saying I'm ambitious. But the 5% of me is this striving artist, and it just comes up every time. I feed it at least once in a year. So then I actually believe that, if I'm doing something, I have to take brickbats with as much aplomb as bouquets. I can't be sitting and telling myself that, okay, here I am and everything is going to be great, and it won't be great, but I'll be remember some kid who's 12 or 14 now has one show at least to see if she's feeling differently than her friends. She can go and watch a show and feel, okay, that's me.
Yeah.
I have 50 movies where men and women are romancing. I just have one show that I can see 2 women romance. And that is me. So if that 19-year-old or 17-year-old or actually 15-year-old, to be honest, has her first realization of not being straight, as we call it.
Yes.
Oh, the number of...
And she can actually say, okay, there are people like me. And that for me was good enough reason to do the show.
Picking up on what you said about tolerance, unfortunately, this is how our law also views it, right? When there was the 377 was written down, it said, okay, it's not legal. Go do it in your bedrooms, away from us, but we're not going to acknowledge it in public spaces. There was no anti-bullying law written for workspaces, for schools. It was not included in any sort of sex education or curriculum where we can talk to children about it. Even now, when there is an argument for same-sex marriage in the Delhi High Court, the response is, this is not, we don't want to acknowledge this. We will offer you tolerance, which is that you stay out of sight and we won't do anything about it. It's not the same as acceptance, like Ekta has just mentioned. But Monica, I want to talk to you about the idea of female sexual pleasure, which I've spent some time researching. The idea, in India, nobody ever talks to young boys about the fact that girls are also supposed to enjoy sex. They want sex, that their wants are supposed to be acknowledged, right? And all of our laws, again, are written from the idea of women being property that can either be snatched or owned or, taken from somebody else. This whole idea of outraging modesty and things like that. How important a part do you think mainstream television and films can play in rectifying that idea that we've been fed for decades, saying that, if you nag her enough, she'll agree.
Oh God.
That no, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that art at its best has a way of transforming people's minds and hearts and addressing. I always say that art is a weapon, and it's a peaceful one. It's one that enters into someone's mind subversively and slowly shifts something. The art of storytelling it's just been, I think Riddhi wanted to jump in and say this, but it's been really incredible, the barrage of personal letters and emails from people talking about their sexuality and wanting to come out to their families and seeking support. And then just to address what you're talking about, female pleasure, another thing that comes up in a lot of the interviews is like, how did you prepare to kiss a girl, you know? And what's really interesting that keeps coming up for me is the idea of safety. And what happens when a woman feels safe is her sexuality opens, her body opens, the pleasure pipeline opens in that space of safety. I've toured for a long time as a musician. I've watched the kind of like animalistic relationship between people drunk and courting on dance floors, and even culture on dance floors of watching men slowly understand what it means to keep safe space for women on a dance floor. When I first started touring, men would just like elbow women, and like there was no culture around making space for the girl to feel safe, for her to get sexy with herself and dance and like let her sensuality flow. So hopefully, you know, in watching this, I think one of the things that I really, I didn't do it intentionally, but you know, when I've watched what Peeplika's kind of energy is in the show of a married woman is that you begin to understand that we all energetically have masculine energy and feminine energy, and we include one, you know, more or less depending on the situation we find ourselves in. And you see Peeplika kind of go from really masculine to really feminine often, you know. And I think it's the same with sex, you know, in relationship. There are things that we're just attracted to suddenly, you know. So yes, female pleasure, it's opening it. And the thing that opens it being safety is something that I hope people take away from this show, because Peeplika essentially becomes a vessel for Astha to be whatever and whoever she is, however she wants to express herself. And you just see her bloom. Her hair comes down. Suddenly she's speaking so much more freely. She becomes like a much spicier Astha, which is sexy, you know? And it comes from the fact that Peeplika just holds that space for her. Sorry if that
I
was too
think one
verbal.
of the things I picked up is this idea of the fact that two women can never have a future together, not only because of all of the societal issues with it, but also that, oh, if you don't have a man to provide for you, and if you're not going to, you know, rely on a man in some way, how can there ever be a future for two women? Fundamentally, because society believes that that is the structure of a household, that it can never be any other way. Was there an attempt, you know, Ekta, to sort of break that idea as well and say, hey, you know what? These two women are going to run away together. They're going to build a life together.
So we've questioned the idea. We haven't like addressed it in a way that we've answered it, but we've questioned it. Because what is family and what is home? Home is usually where you feel safe. And that doesn't have to come with a gender attached. I mean, I'm doing promotions for this show and I'm so often asked, "Aap settle kab ho rahe hain?" Matlab, I'm like, more settled. I mean, I think I'm pretty settled. And so unfortunately, and I was just, I have to say this, I mean, I'm on this chat show and I don't know how angry I'm getting, because this gentleman is asking me that, you know, on one hand you're on Forbes 50 most powerful list, on the other hand aapki shaadi mein nahi hui hai. Matlab, I was like, what's the connection? Oh, you're so successful professionally and personally, don't you feel? I'm like, I feel great.
You should say like, dude, this is me settled. You don't want to see me unsettled. You just unsettled it again. You unsettle me and then I'll show you.
I don't think he was being mean. He was just, it was deep-rooted conditioning.
Yeah.
And it's deep-rooted conditioning, and I'm looking like somebody you're not being able to put in a box. I make soap, clearly very traditional soap. Then I go into something like sex. Then I'm coming to promote a same-sex story. And then I'm like the poster girl for soap operas. And then I have had a child without marriage. And I have, I mean, like, they're not being able to understand. So they think maybe I didn't find someone, so I chose this. So you have to make a story around a person, because Everything has to be put in a box, like till.
Also, people like to find something wrong with you, right?
Not only that, they have to have a story. The story has to link. So she must be going home lonely, and now she's had a child, but somebody will come and make her happy. Itne badi company chala. I could see there was a whole story made because nothing was fitting,
Yeah.
Yeah, but you carry, sorry, I have to jump in here. You carry a mystique, There are so few versions of you. When I watched you walk in, I met Ekta for the first time at a press conference in Jaipur after now I've acted in 2 of her shows. I felt like I was untouchable in the industry. Like I was cast in things and things just disintegrated in my hands for 5 years. So I've heard repeatedly, Ekta, she takes chances on people. And also Ekta occupies a lot of space. And there are very few women who occupy so much space, and that makes men uncomfortable.
It's not
It
really
makes
me.
people uncomfortable.
I'm talking about for normal people who are like living lives. If I'm getting put in a box, how many women get put in a box in a day? It
100%.
happens every
100%.
day. Faye is in a box. I mean, serious journalists can never have fun. Riddhi, done television, cannot do mainstream web content.
Yeah.
Monica, alternative, cannot do something which is we'll call her for some Angrezi role. I'm living always in a box and jumping out of it. So I hope that if I can pull someone out of their box, I try my best. That's all.
Yeah, and also, this, like Monica pointed out, there's this sort of need to make yourself smaller so as to not make other people uncomfortable, right? I was told many times that, tum ladki ho in the office when I was working in television. I was told, tum ladki ho, tum pyar se apna kaam kyun nahi chalate? Why are you so aggressive and so ambitious? And I was like, first of all, I've not been a ladki for over a decade. I'm a woman. Thank you very much. But, what is this need to, people expect us to be soft and maternal and likable and all of these things. And I love the fact that Ekta has not made herself in any way smaller to make other people comfortable. I mean, let's make them uncomfortable.
Because I have temper. I mean, we've heard of all these men having temper issues. I've been called a witch after some time, but
it's ridiculous.
It gets you off the pedestal loving phase of your life. You're no longer attached to it. You don't care. And that's why you can tell stories. Like, I can't even be coming back to the show, which is my biggest the reason I'm all out promoting this show. People have so many conspiracy theories, and mine only is I really want to go out there and promote those shows that everyone wants to say we tolerated this. I knew to. There's very little value attached to credibility. A lot of value attached to success. So I don't tend to agree to that, and I tend to believe that credibility is going to have equity than no other. So, sorry that it is true.
Sugar free.
I really hope so, guys. I have to bring this now to a wrap, but this has been such an amazing conversation. All 3 of you are amazing women. It's my pleasure to
All
have
4
this
of us, you're amazing.
We have to say that being on your platform is probably the most important thing for shows like this, because
absolutely
we spoke what we should be speaking and not kaisa laga aap dono ko kiss karte hue.
No, seriously.
Yeah, I really want to say thank you for your great service,
Yes.
for just being someone who you share information in a way that none other, like your integrity, what you represent. It's risky, it's brave. You are so badass. You're one of the few people I look towards for the truth. Even when your neck is out there, and I really, really
and
respect
that's what
that,
I
admire
say, that credibility never goes away. It is value.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. In lockdown, I think I stopped watching all news and I just was watching you. everything that you were sharing, that's all. That was my news, because it was it was the truth, it was clean, and it was told as it is. And thank you for doing what you're doing. I think that it's really important, and we don't really talk about that enough also, you know. As a woman to come forward and do what you're doing, as a human to come forward and do what you're doing, I think it's excellent. And please don't stop, because there'll be many more who'll become you know, they'll see you, and they'll do the same in whatever field they're doing. They'll tell the truth, and they'll live in their truth. And that is what I think all of us are here, even with our show, that's what we're trying to say. Live in your truth. Doesn't matter if someone believes you, they put you in a box, or they put a label on you. Live your truth. And so,
thank you so much, you guys. I can't tell you how much I needed to hear that.
Yes.
Thank you.
We all need to stand up for each other. I strongly believe that women need to do their part of just, you know, mindlessly applauding each other, even when all of us feel extremely embarrassed about it, or, you know, we feel like, okay, no, don't do it. But we need to do it. We need to.
Yeah, it all boils down to how we raise little girls in this country, right? Where they're told to sort of sit with your palms in your lap and be small and be quiet, where the boys are allowed to run around and make a lot of noise. At some point, we need to make little noise for each other.
Yeah, girls, go make noise.
Yeah, make noise. Thank you, ladies. It has been my honor and pleasure to have this
Thank you,
conversation.
Faye. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For the guys who are watching, everyone watching, go check out the show. It's really beautiful. It's also shot beautifully. It's art. These two ladies look like art themselves.
Thank you. Thank you.
Write to me. Tell me what you think. We maybe have another conversation about it after you guys. It's a sort of like a book club equivalent. Go watch the show, and then we'll talk more about it.